The very first food trucks out in the West were actually chuck wagons. And why they're called chuck wagons and what they do and how they were pulled is what we're going to discover today. I ran into an interesting guy at the beef roundup in Riverton, Wyoming. And here's our conversation about the first food truck in the United States.
And,
so this is an old original one,
yeah,
that you're restoring,
yeah,
basically.
I put a new floor in it, had to put some new cleats in it. You know, we redid, you know, limb seated it. The running gears are newer than the box. The box is probably over 100 years old. We don't know where it came from.
Okay.
So,
anyhow, and what's your name?
Colonel Paul Vance.
Colonel
Paul.
Paul.
P-A-U-L.
Paul.
Vance.
Sorry. Vance.
Yeah. It's a Kentucky thing.
Colonel Paul Vance.
Yeah.
Kentucky thing.
Yeah.
Awesome. So can you tell us a few things about, like, parts of the chuck wagon that
they call this a jockey box? Just keeps it a whole hammer. That's the stakes for the fly. A couple other little things, you know.
So now I call jockey boxes a thing in the vehicle.
Yeah.
Right? That's where this came from?
I would assume.
I'm not sure where it started because that's obviously not a jockey, but.
Yeah, but Charlie Goodnight, you know, probably know, he invented the first chuck wagon because he did one of the first big cattle drives up the Chisholm Trail.
I did know that part. I didn't know he invented the. I didn't know he invented the chuck wagon. Yeah.
Yeah,
cool.
He invented the chuck wagon, and that's, you know, Chuck, Charlie Goodnight.
Okay.
You can't see, but we got fly poles on the other side. There's a canvas in there. They wanted to leave it open so people could kind of look inside, see how it looks. You know, and actually, it's the first food truck.
Exactly.
If you look at
first
it
food
way.
truck. It was very limited audience,
yes.
target audience.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
You're cowboys.
Yeah.
You know, 20 or 25 probably.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it's, of course, the water barrel's not original, you know, but it's oak. I mean, it's as original as you can get. The barrel saddles, we made those.
So was there usually only one water barrel on?
Yeah, one water barrel, and they would. It was usually a 30-gallon.
Okay.
I didn't want a 30-gallon because you multiply 30 by, you know, what a gallon of water weighs. That's a lot of weight. It'll actually make your wagon ride sideways.
Oh man, I bet. I bet. Water is heavy,
yep.
8 pounds a gallon. So
yep, roughly. Yep. So, you know, like I say, it's still kind of a work in progress.
Sure. So they had springs. Do you have
no,
springs under here?
No,
they don't have springs.
Your freight wagons had springs sometime, or your spring wagons. The only springs you had on these was on the seat.
Oh, okay.
That was the only suspension system you had on these.
So you're telling me the cook wasn't comfortable very often?
No.
This doesn't look very big either.
No,
I mean, they had to pack a lot of.
Yeah. He mostly packed, you know, food. And sometimes they had what they called a hoodlum wagon or a chuck pup that they would hook behind this. And if they had a lot of cowboys, they'd bring a whole nother wagon just for the bedrolls and stuff.
Okay.
So, and then, you know, naturally they would have to restock up the trail sometimes, but they had a lot of dried fruit, flour, sugar, coffee, you know, and, but they would resupply, you know, when they could, you know, which wasn't very often.
Now, did they have a lot of beans on the trail?
Yeah. Beans, biscuits, and coffee.
Right. Beans probably, I can't say this, but it's probably, so I've heard, and I don't know if this is true, that the beans is actually why they started calling riding at night hockey. Because the cowboys had so much gas that you could hear them out there and they would say the Nighthawks are calling.
Could have been. But they also had sow belly. You know,
sow belly, which is?
A pig's belly. Bacon.
Yeah,
because you could salt it down and, you know, and it would keep. Now, they didn't eat beef unless somebody, you know, broke a leg or it died, because that was the way they made their money.
Exactly.
And they only averaged about 12 miles a day, 12 to 14 miles a day.
Yeah, people, this is really something, because usually they would camp within sight of their last camp. That's how slow cattle drives had to move, because you would just move all the fat off your cattle, so you couldn't move them like 20 miles a day, or you wouldn't have cattle left at the end. So.
And that's where you made your money, was so much a pound. They wanted them to gain weight.
Mm-hmm.
But if you weren't first up the trail, you didn't get much grass, you didn't get much water, you didn't get much firewood. So the quicker you got going, the better off you and your cattle were.
That's right. That's right. So is there, what's that thing at the back there?
What, you talking about the box?
Yeah.
That's the actual chuck box they cook out of.
Okay.
Kind of hard to see, but yeah, this is. I'm gonna turn. See,
I see.
You
Yeah.
got places for your utensils. Space here for your, you know, flour, lard, whatever that, and down here, this is called a boot. This is where you keep your Dutch ovens, your actual cooking.
Dutch ovens, which are the cast iron
Yes.
pan, pots, and everything that you cook in. And then you have some. You got some utensils back there.
Yep, just some plates. We're stocking it right now, kind of getting some stuff, but we want to stay as authentic as possible.
Sure.
Because a lot of the Dutch oven cook-offs that you go to, they don't only judge you on your food, they will judge you on your authenticity. Which, you know, some of them, I mean, they really, you know, there's Kent Rollins has a 1884 or 1886 Studebaker wagon,
Okay.
and that's pretty authentic.
Wow.
You know, this running gear is not as authentic because it's got seal bearings on the wheels.
Okay.
But it's
Which,
still old.
I can't imagine not having. I mean, what they had was just a greased axle.
Yep.
Right, with a nut on the end, or.
Yep, had a nut on the end that was reversed. That way it wouldn't turn off. It had to go the way the wheel turned.
Right.
It would turn off.
So you got to understand. So when they thread something, they thread it on like this.
Yep.
But the
They
problem
have
is the
reverse
wheel
thread.
turns like this. So if you thread it on like this and your wheel turns like this, eventually it's just going to turn that nut off, and your wheel's going to fall off. That's a disaster. So they
And-
did it reverse.
Yep. There's a coffee grinder on the other side because that was the essential, you know, one of the essential things that you had to have. You know, without coffee, it was, you know, and it was Arbuckle's coffee. And you can still get Arbuckle's coffee.
Arbuckle's coffee.
Yep, and you can still get it. It's out of Tucson, Arizona now.
Huh.
But they would get the beans green, and then they had to cook them, and then they ground them. You know, right here, because if they were already cooked, they wouldn't, you know, last. But that's the only way they could get them was green coffee beans. They would cook them in a skillet. They'd grind them up. Make
Wow.
coffee.
Wow. Yeah, I understand the coffee thing. I can. I don't need it,
Yeah.
but I can't go without
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah, I ain't had mine yet this morning either.
that's right.
Yeah, this.
So this is pretty cool. I mean, it
Yeah.
kind of a.
Yeah, it's. I didn't redo the frame because
Here's
it was
the
good
brakes.
shape. That's the brakes. Yep.
The brakes. Now, how did you actually pull the brake on?
That lever over there.
So there's a lever, there's a
Yep,
lever right
yep.
over there, a steel lever. See that metal lever?
That goes forward.
You pull
and
that,
will lock the brakes down.
pull that forward, and you can put your foot on it. You can put your foot on it and push it down once you pushed it forward,
Yep.
and hope to heck.
Or it'll stop it. It'll
Will
make
it?
those wheels slide. Yeah.
Will it?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it will.
Well, because your horses ain't going to do that.
No.
I mean, so your horses were up here.
Yep.
Your horses were up here tied. How many did they use? Two?
Two on this.
So one horse on each side of this. What's this called?
This is the tongue.
Tongue, and this is
This
the
is a double tree.
double
These-
tree?
Yeah, these are single trees. If you
Okay.
hook one horse, you would hook one, but this is a double tree because you've got two.
So you got a double tree, then a single tree.
Yep. Single tree on each side, and they're hooked
these-
to this, and this is a,
These kind of move so that,
Yep.
and the reason that moves is so that one horse wasn't pulling all the weight. So if one horse moved step forward further than the other one, it would just
put the pressure on him too.
lever like this,
Yep.
and they would both be pulling the same. Otherwise, one would cheat all the time. So,
Yeah, and some of them do that.
oh yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
So this front piece actually hooks on
It's
to
a yoke.
here.
It's called a yoke.
This is called the yoke.
Yep. Goes on there just like that.
Okay, and then
and then this
the
goes to each side.
horses hook to this in the
Yep,
front.
yep,
So
and
that
collars.
when they pull back,
They can push the wagon
when they
back.
pull back like this, it actually pulls on this,
Yep.
which pushes back on the
They
wagon.
can back the wagon up, and then when it goes forward, you want it to be sitting like this. If you get too much slack in your tugs, it can pop off there.
Oh, so it just sits on there.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
nothing holding it on there.
Yeah,
I see.
it just sits on there like that.
Okay. So I've been around horses that pull things, and I can't imagine the wrecks that they had back in those days. When you had something happen, you run into something that spooked everything to death, and you got horses tied to a wagon like that. Now you're flying across the prairie, which is not a road. It's really, really bumpy. So,
And this wagon here, chuck wagons, like I say, each one was individual. Some of them were bigger, but this is about as small. But you look how narrow it is. You had to be careful where you took it, or you could tip it over pretty easy.
yeah, you can see that how narrow that is.
Yeah,
It's not very
the box
narrow.
is 36 inches wide.
36 inches.
Yeah.
That is not very wide. So
And you know, but this was, like I say, the box is original. The box is over 100 years old.
okay.
But yeah, they were easy to tip over.
Oh yeah.
Now-
So you probably, because everybody likes to eat and everybody likes coffee, I'm guessing the best horses that they had for pulling were attached to this wagon.
It was usually mules.
Usually mules,
Yes.
which are sometimes too smart for their own good.
Right.
But
They're smarter than
they
horses.
are intelligent. So
Smarter than horses and smarter than most humans.
yeah, oh, yeah. That's why I don't mess with them very much. They scare me when an animal's smarter than I am. That's when I
Well, a mule is a self-preservationist.
absolutely,
No.
absolutely they are.
You have been around horses because I've watched your videos.
Yep.
You know,
And I've been around a lot of mules too,
Yeah.
packing.
But people think mules are stubborn. A mule, if it thinks something is going to hurt it, it won't do it. It'll take a beating first. A horse, you can kill them.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you can push till their heart bursts. You know, whatever. A mule won't do that.
no, they're just like they'll quit.
Yep.
That's it. I'm done.
Yep.
But they also don't like to hurt themselves, so they'll miss a tree with the pack, where a horse will
Right.
hit the stupid tree every single
Yep.
time. And yeah.
I grew up in Kentucky. My papa farmed with mules, so that's where I learned about mules. you know.
Okay.
And I tell people I started driving when I was 3 years old. I really didn't drive. He'd hand me the reins. He'd talk to them. That's all it took.
Yeah.
But they were used.
Yeah.
You know, not abused, but they were used. You know, that's the way he made his living farming. You know.
Absolutely.
And but yeah, like you said about the mules, a horse will run into a tree with a pack saddle. A mule, well, they'll get out the side
Yeah.
of it.
Because it's not that they're trying to preserve the pack necessarily. They don't understand that. But when they hit a tree, they have to kind of step back and catch themselves again. So mules are smart enough to think, well, that's kind of a waste of energy, so they'll go around the tree. I'm actually implying that I know what a mule thinks, but that's my theory on it anyway.
Well, there's a reason that they've used them in the Grand Canyon for over 100 years.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's all they use to go down in the canyon is mules.
Yep.
You know, and I've never been there. They have a weight limit of 200 pounds, and that knocks me out. But, you know, they say they'll walk on those edges because some of those ledges ain't 3 foot wide, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
as wide as that wagon.
Yeah.
You know, and they said those mules get on that edge, you know, and do, oh, you know.
Oh, it's freaky. I've never been to that one, but I've ridden on some pretty freaky trails.
Yep.
And you better trust your animal.
That's right.
Now, one thing a mule does is actually know where its feet are at all times, which makes it, which is a detriment to dogs. I've had
They can
cow
only-
dogs that aren't even paying attention and just wandering through a herd of horses, and a mule will just wait and nail it because they know where their feet are at. They don't miss very often.
Well, if you notice, mules' eyes set wider on their head than a horse. They can about see 360 degrees. They can see everything right back to their hips, whereas a horse can't do that.
Right.
That's the reason they're more, you know, afraid of something coming up behind them. You know, a horse has to turn its head to see a mule. He just kind of rolls his eyes.
Exactly.
And, of course,
Different animal completely.
Totally. You know,
Yeah.
but I've led pack strings in and out of the Yellowstone. You know, and I'd rather have a string of mules than a string of horses anytime.
Oh, me too. Me too. You gotta kind of learn how to deal with them, but once you do, they're way better at packing than a horse.
Oh
that's
yeah,
for sure.
absolutely. They're not as big as, you know, a lot of horses, even though they're getting draft cross mules now, which, you know, some
I've
of
seen
them,
some big ones. Yeah.
16 and a half hands, which is a little hard to, you know, get a pack out of.
Mm-hmm. Well, man, I appreciate it,
Well,
Paul.
thank you, sir. It's a
Appreciate
pleasure to meet you. I'll have to
Absolutely.
subscribe next time I
Absolutely.
find one of your videos.
Yeah, well,
I'm
you'll
always
be on
watching.
one now.
Oh,
So this
Well,
will be on YouTube.
I know you got a little building you all set up to do everything because I don't talk too well, Trinity.
Oh no problem. You did a great job.